Let's work on the details of the gingerbread house for the Gingerbread Crochet Along. I'm ready to finish my door and my windows, and I need to add a little doorknob, and so I am going to do a little, it's called a surface bobble, and it's in the pattern. And I just wanted to mention that on this door, I am using the one that shows more cream, and this was also in the pattern, and it looks a little bit more like icing, and it looks better than the other side, but you can of course choose any side. Now I have this long string that I will be sewing the door on with, so I've just taken some extra cream yarn and I'm going to make a doorknob. Now in the pattern, she just uses the same hook that she's been using for the entire quilt, and the doorknob was a little big, so I'm going to try a smaller 2mm hook. I did use a 4.5mm hook for my entire quilt versus the 4mm that was suggested, just because I usually crochet on the tight side. So I'm not going to use the one that I've used for the whole quilt, and we'll see if this helps make the doorknob a little bit smaller. So I am going to put a slip knot, and I don't know, I think the doorknob would be cute about right here. In the pattern, she didn't really say, it was a certain number up. She just kind of guessed, and I think just kind of in the middle right here. And so what I'm going to do is put my hook down between the post of this stitch and back up, so that I'm working around the post of a stitch to secure it. Get these separated, and then I will just slip through. And normally when I do attaching yarn, I leave both instead of slip stitching and only leaving one loop on my hook, and I'm going to do that. So now I am going to chain 2. I think she did a chain 3, so maybe I'll do a chain 3. This will be a double crochet, and then I need to make 3 more. I'm going to do half of the double crochet instead of finishing off, and we've done this before. And so I will wrap the yarn around my hook, and I'm not going to go back under that stitch that or that post that I just did. I'm going to actually insert it into the base of that slip stitch that I just made. And then I will pull through. And this might be a little, a bit tricky because this is a tiny hook for this yarn. So then once I've got 3, I will yarn over and pull through for the first 2, and then I will stop because that's half of my stitch. And I will do that again. And I think that's all I'm going to do, because I only made, I think in the pattern it calls for 3, but because we have that first original one, I kind of feel like that counts as 3, and I don't want it too big. So I am not going to finish doing one more like the pattern. So I will yarn over and pull through. Yep, I think that makes a perfect size. And I am going to just chain just to kind of secure that. Then I need to go back, and I think she had slip stitched and then chained, but chained. Since I already changed, I think I'm going to go ahead and cut mine and secure it on the back and form the little bobble. So I'm going to just cut this off, and I'm just going to pull this through. And then I will Just take that yarn to the back. And then take this first one that we did through the back. And kind of shape it. I think that's cute. And that's quite a bit smaller than the one in the pattern. So now I have, when you pull the yarn to the back, of course, make sure that they are not, you know, in the same place, because I need to tie a knot. And if they're in the same place, then it'll just go through to the front. So you can see that they're coming out in separate places. And so I will tie a knot to secure. I always like tying square knots, which is, of course, right over left, left over right. However, you could also do left over right, right over left, which is what actually I usually end up doing. Don't pull too tight, but tight enough that you want it to, you know, pull in to look like a doorknob. So with that first one, and then when you tie the second one, you can pull, you know, tighter and it won't cinch up. Oh, that's so cute. All right, so I will, even though this will be on the back, I'm going to go ahead and weave these in and then cut them off. I won't go, so when I normally weave in anything that I'm working, I will do it 3 times. I would, you know, go down, up, and down. And that just has been what I have always done. But, you know, this is the back. So I think I will just do it down and up a little bit. And then, you know, down and up. And then we'll be ready to put that on. Now for the window, there was supposed to be one window, the door and then the window on top. And I saw a picture of somebody in the Facebook group that did 2 windows and then like a wreath at the top. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I like the 2 windows. So I did make a second window, and when you finish the window, the yarn, you know, ends up at the top. And you can see on this one where I made the little window panes, they come kind of from the inside. So I will, and I need to tie those off. So I will just come down underneath. And I will hold it and pull it so that knot isn't sitting on top. And then just go down to make the window pane. And then again, don't pull too tight or it, you know, cinches up. And then I will go over to the next side to make the other side. I'm going to go down just a little bit. And there's the cute little panes of the window. And then I will use this long piece to sew it to the quilt. I am going to go ahead and tie off with just a square knot. Give it a tug. And I don't think, did I weave those in? I don't think I weaved those in, so I'm going to just cut these. I'm not going to cut them, you know, right next to the knot. I'll leave, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. And then with this one, I think I'm going to weave it, since it's kind of close to the edge, I am just going to weave it under a couple just to scoot it in towards the center. And now I'm ready to put these little windows on. So I'm ready to sew the door on. And of course, I didn't do it at the time when I made them. And so it's definitely easier to follow the directions. I highly suggest that. So the door and the window was sewn on after this centerpiece was made. It was actually a week or so later that we actually made the door, but the lights hadn't been done, and so it was just this one piece, and it was much easier to work with. I have, of course, my whole quilt done, and it's a lot to sew these on, and I still have the bobbles. So I suggest, if you are going to do this pattern, to do it when she tells you to do it. Just make things a lot easier. Now, this door is exactly 3 of these stitches, sets of stitches wide. And so it's very easy to determine, you know, where the center is. There's 4 sets of stitches on each side of the door. And so just line it up at the bottom. And on the door, these stitches, because this is actually the front of this last row, and when you flip it over, the back of the stitches have these little vertical or horizontal, I guess, technically, but I am just going to sew through the quilt and kind of just go over these little stitches so that they're, you know, not as noticeable. So that's how I think I'm going to do it. If you have a, you know, different way or a better way of sewing on, or a way that you've used that you like, of course, there's no exact way to sew these on, just however you would like. Now I do want to mention one thing. I am going just from the top, kind of, you know, making sure I'm grabbing stitches underneath and coming up, all staying on the top. However, it's probably going to be easier when you have a smaller piece to actually put down, pull, you know, go from underneath and pull your needle down and then come up through the bottom. But because I've got my whole entire quilt, I'm gonna see if I can continue to do it this way. I might have to do that a few times. But normally you would be going from the top down through the bottom, you know, putting, again, your hand underneath, pulling the needle, and then coming back up through the top. That would have been smarter for me to follow the directions. So let's continue. Here I am working across the bottom of the door, and while I like the gingerbread color, the brown color, going all the way to the bottom of the house, I decided to go ahead and use the white yarn and try to make it look a little bit like icing on the bottom, because I didn't want to leave a bottom portion of that door unattached so that it wouldn't get caught on something. And so that is what I decided to do. So I finished attaching my cute little windows. Again, this is different than the pattern. The pattern just had the one window up here, but I'm going to, I think, crochet a little wreath and put that up there. I saw someone that did that and I thought that was cute. So now I'm getting ready to put my bobbles, which, you know, were to be like little candies decorating the gingerbread house. And I've kind of marked where I think I'm going to put them. The pattern, they did one bobble. I think it was about this area, and they didn't really say, you know, exactly where to put each of them. So I just looked at the picture and I'm gonna put them, I think, in these spots, but we'll just kind of see how they look. And then I'm just gonna take these little bobbins that I used for the lights and just use up the extra yarn that I didn't need for those. And so this bobble is, I think the first one was yellow. So the first bobble, it's just a 3 double crochet together bobble. And so I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook. I think I'm just going to unwind all of this. And that should be enough, but if not, I'll just undo it and get more yarn. So I will just insert it under the post. And I think I'll just do it, or maybe, I don't know. I'm going to try it here and see what it looks like. So I will just insert my hook under the post and then come back out. And then again, I am not going to slip stitch through the one that was on the hook like most people do before they chain. I think that looks more like a stitch with the 2 on. So now I'm going to chain 2 kind of loose. I usually don't, again, chain 3 for my double crochets. Then I'm going to make 2 more partial double crochets. So I'll wrap the yarn around my hook. I'm not going to go back under that post. I'm going to go into the base of the yellow. And I'll try to get 2. And then I will bring that up and make half of a double crochet. And then I will do that again, wrap around, go back through that bottom yellow portion, wrap around, bring through 2. And so there is like my 3 together. I will bring and put it through all 3. I'm going to go ahead and I think chain right here. For the directions, she slip stitched and then chained. So now I need to go back to make this a little bobble and put it up just a little bit, and then I will slip stitch and kind of give that a tug. I will chain again. And I will just cut some of this off. So now what I need to do, and again, this would be a lot easier if I had done this when I only had this much to work with. It's kind of hard with all of this to go back and forth underneath. So I do suggest if you haven't done this yet to, you know, do the decorations and stuff when it's just the square that goes to the red. And it would be a lot easier. So now I just need to come from underneath the blanket and I will grab that first tail and pull it through. And then go up and pull this next one through. You see how cute that little, looks like a little candy. And so what I will do is flip this over and I'm going to tie a square knot. I think I'm going to weave this. That's pretty big. You want definitely a space between them, but I think that's a little far. So I think I'm going to pull this one a little bit closer, because when I tie a double knot, I don't want that huge gap to, you know, crinkle up. And so let's see if I can get it with this hook. So now I'm a little bit closer. I will tie a double knot. I'm not going to pull super tight since it's not really close on that first one. I will hold it and then do the second part. And then that's when I will pull it really tight. And then I will weave these in when I'm done, but I'll do those all together when I flip it over and I have all the candies. So there's the cute little gumdrop. So I will put, I think the pattern calls for yellow, pink, light green, yellow, pink, light green, yellow. So I will continue to do all those, and then we have one more step for the house. So after I did the 3 yellow and I started on a pink, the 3, or really the 2 double crochets that I did for the bobble weren't quite enough. I think maybe the yellow yarn is a little thicker. And so what I'm going to do from now on, I think, and I probably would go back and change these, but I think they're going to be okay, is I will do everything, you know, starting as regular, chain 2, go through that bottom of the pink, yarn over and pull through 2, start another one. So for the yellow, that's where I stopped with the 3, and I'm going to do it once more. It gave a little bit better of a look, and I think that's what the directions called for. And then I tried following the directions. So I didn't chain first. I'm gonna go back and slip stitch, pull tight, and I think she chained after that. And so with the pink especially, it's about the same size. It just looked better. When I only did it with the way I did the yellows, it was a little bit too small. So again, follow the directions. That's always a good thing. So now when I pull this through and pull that to the back side, that looks better than when I had done it the other way. So I am going to go ahead and do that with the rest of the green and the pink, and I think that looks great. So I'll continue. So the last thing I need to do for the house is to add little surface crochet that will kind of look like little, I don't know, more icing. And so it's the same technique as the surface crochet that I did for the cord. And it's super easy to do. You do need to have your yarn on the back of your work. And again, this would have been much easier with just that little square center, but I didn't do that. So your yarn needs to stay under or behind your work, and the crochet hook, of course, on the top. So I will put my crochet hook in. I'm just gonna try to make this kind of like a scallop. So I'm going to put my hook in where I'm going to start, and I need to hook on. So I've made a slip knot, and I'm just going to hook onto my hook and then, you know, pull it down. And once you get started, it's a lot easier And then I'll just, you know, grab my yarn. And I will just pull it to the front. So surface crochet is just where I will go put my hook down. I'll grab the yarn, pull it up, and then make a slip stitch. And you don't want it too tight. And then I'll just go down, grab the yarn, and slip stitch. And that's what happens if you get too tight, then it's hard to slip stitch. So, you know, make it a little bit taller or looser than you normally would. And then I think I'll go around this one, and you just kind of have to look ahead and just see where you want. And so it will look just kind of like little chains. I think I'll go up here. And of course, if it's not something, if it's not exactly where you want it, and I had to do this, you know, many times with the cord, is then let's say I didn't want it there, I would just take my hook out and, you know, pull it through and start over. Then I think I'm going to go up here because I want them to look like there's, I want it to kind of look, you know, like a little, see, I probably did that one a little too tight. And then I'll keep going. I think I'll just go up around this. And then again, kind of work and do a little scallop between these two. And there's no, you know, exact place to put these. You just put it where you think it's going to work. And if it doesn't, you can easily take it out. And, you know, try it in another spot. See, like, I think that looks too pointed right there for me. So to take it out, I will just pull the yarn in the back. And I think I need to go over and do it in a little different spot to make it not look like such a corner. That looks better. And then go up. So I think that looks pretty good. It's kind of a long one, but I'm kind of go over the top of this one so I can head back down. So that's what it's going to look like. So I will just continue till I get to the other side. So before I tie it off, I'm going to look to make sure that it's exactly, you know, or not exactly even, but it's as even as it can be. And I think that looks good. So now what I need to do is as I just had this little tiny leftover ball, so I just need to cut a tail and pull it through, and then I can just use my crochet hook and go towards the top, pull it to the back, and then I will tie off and weave in both ends. So I think that looks pretty good. So other than the little wreath, I'm going to add my little house is done, and I love it. So here's the back. I've weaved in the ends, and the end and the start were right here, and I just weaved it through and got to the white so I could weave that back and forth 3 or 4 times. But you can see the back, you can see the surface crochet and just a little bit of the little bobbles. It's very clean on the back, and then of course the front.